Hi, this is Robert Kiyosaki, and you're listening to Capital Hacking. This is the most important thing you can listen to today.
Here's the one.
I have a dream.
With great power comes great responsibility.
I could do this all day.
This is it. Don't get scared now.
They may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom.
Cinderella story out of nowhere.
It's in the hole. That the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Capital Hacking begins in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to the big show. Josh McCown here. John Edwin, it is fun to be with you, buddy.
Always a good time, Josh, and thank you for just all of your wisdom and your input. And listen, we just have a blast interviewing friends of ours and just inspiring people, right?
Yeah, and it's fun. And first of all, it's a pleasure to be with you every once in a while. So here's a little inside baseball here. Doing this show with you, John, has been absolutely a life-changing experience for me. So thank you for doing this. And we've been. You'll have to double check with me, but I think it's 100 plus shows, at least 100, maybe even 125 shows or something crazy. So it's been awesome. So thank you.
I actually think it's even
more.
But neither here nor there. We got
Matt
a lot. Einheber today, and he's a friend of ours, a GoBundance brother, and he owns a title company called Title EQ, and they do both commercial and residential. He's in 10 states residentially and throughout the whole country commercially. And then he talks to us in length about JVs and how that works. And it's just so awesome.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I take away from this that we can all apply in any of our businesses today is what money are we missing? Because, he's famous now for helping people create title companies. As people that are in the world, he was surprising me. You and I have heard of real estate guys that do this, real estate agents, but I never thought about private equity guys creating a title company or a family office creating a title company. That would never have crossed my mind, but he explains how that all works. It's a dynamic show.
Let's go.
John, I'm on assignment today down here at Bohemia Manor Farm, but I could not miss this conversation with Matt. I'm really grateful that we've got him here.
Yeah, super excited for Matt to be on Capital Hacking here. Matt, can you give us a background on who you are and what, you're growing up? Let our listeners connect.
Sure. Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me on, both of you. Josh, you're missing some bottles there in the background. That's the only thing I'm missing.
You noticed that. Yeah. Look at this guy. He picked up on that.
Got to be somewhere. They're somewhere around. No, it's great to be on here, guys. I appreciate you having me. Yeah, I'll give you the background. I'll dive right in. I've been in the title business, honestly, the real estate I say we're in real estate transit. We facilitate real estate transactions. It's probably the most concise way I've come up with saying what we do. Because title, most people that are adjacent to what we do, real estate investors or brokers or agents or attorneys or whatever, lenders, they understand, they know enough to be dangerous. They get what title is, but not really. It's a pretty nuanced, deep kind of a niche. And so I've been in this business for 20 years. I've also developed property along the way and done a bunch of condo conversions and some multifamily stuff, mostly in the Philly area, mostly in Philly proper, which is where I live now and have spent most of my life in Philadelphia. I started a title company about 20 years ago, grew it, built it, sold it. We were a multi-state company by the time we were done. Was a mostly lender-driven title company, a lot of refinance, a lot of lender business. And then I started and built a technology company in the space because what people don't really know or fully understand, again, adjacent to the business, is that like what title really is about. They think it's like, oh, we have to make sure that the person who you're buying it from is the person that they bought it from and that they, right, it's chain of title stuff. And they're like, well, why can't blockchain just like make that go, like deal with that, And there's a long answer to that question, and it's an interesting one. We can get into that if you're interested. But the chain of title is easy. Like it can be done by blockchain. It's really not the hard part. It's important, but it's not the hard part. The hard part is really, that debts and liabilities can attach to real estate, right? Not only simple things like taxes, and utilities, things that are directly connected to that real estate, but also civil matters. If you don't pay your credit card bills, they might sue you in a civil court. That might attach to your real estate, right? Where I'm sitting right now, I happen to be sitting in Philadelphia. If I get a parking ticket, I'm not kidding about it. If I get a parking ticket in Philadelphia and you don't pay it, at a certain point, it liens, and it will lien real estate that I own inside of the county in Philadelphia. But that rule is specific only to Philadelphia. In New Jersey or in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, which touches Philadelphia, that doesn't apply, right? So the rules are different everywhere. And that's really what matters, is we make sure that debts and liabilities don't transfer from ownership or from lending on real estate, for that matter, to property owner to property owner. And that's really the value of what title does.
Hey everybody, it's Robert Helms, host of the Real Estate Guys radio program. And when you're not listening to our show, make sure you're tuned to Capital Hacking. You're going to dig it.
And then a couple of years ago, I took this technology that I built and we were selling it to other title companies, attorneys, underwriters. And I said, you know what? I built an engine block for running what I think is the most effective title company, in the country. I'm going to gobble that back up. I'm going to take that back up, and I'm going to start another title agency. And this time, do it a little bit differently, focus on what we know how to do really, really well, which is joint ventures, which is really creating money, for this is capital hacking. Let's talk about capital hacking, how to make money if you're in the, if you drive real estate investments a lot, whether you're a real estate principal, an investor, a family office, a developer, a syndicator, or maybe an attorney or a lender for that matter. All those different types of people are joint venture partners of ours. So there's this legal carve out called the affiliated business arrangement, right? And it allows people, I'm not allowed to pay anyone for the referral of business otherwise, but we can create a title company in which you can be a partner and own a piece of that company, get distributions of profits proportionally, whatever you own in that company. There's a lot of rules around how to operate it. It's a very highly regulated carve out. It's different in each state, has their own version of these rules. And then there's some federal rules too, but we've become experts at it. Of course, we're very, very, very good at understanding how to build these things and how to run them compliantly. And we do so with a very different twist of how they're typically done, both economically with a very light fixed cost, but still compliant, but also, in a business with a business process that really delivers without getting too much in the weeds. And I will if you want, but I don't want to get too nerdy. So yeah, we've kind of hacked this thing. We figured out how to do it and deliver returns to people who drive real estate transactions that in many cases just aren't. It's not even on their radar. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I have a lot of questions, but John, I'll let you go first.
Oh, great. Yeah. So you said that you had a title company and then an exit, correct?
Correct.
And then was there some type of legal jargon that you couldn't start another company for X amount of years, or like some type of non-compete?
Yeah, I had a really interesting exit, but when I left my title company, I left it so that I could focus on this technology company that I started that I mentioned. And so our clients were very different, even though I was very much in the space. I went from, running this title agency for 15 years to then selling this technology to other title companies, right? So it was a non-competitive kind of a thing. And then, which also brought me a lot of insight. It's like, if you ran a factory, right, and owned a factory, and then you became a consultant for other factories that made the same widget that you made, you know how to run your factory, you know how to run your business. You saw it the way you did it. But then I got to see it the way that I probably spoke with close to 2,000 different title companies.
Wow.
And we went deep, in a period of about maybe 3 or so years, 3.5, 4 years. We went pretty deep where we really understood what their model looked like. Either I consulted with them, or they became clients, or they became prospective clients, where we kind of went deep and tried to make them clients. And so that was the period of time that I wasn't competing. And so, yeah, we fulfilled it that way. And then when that was kind of up, I said, all right, it's time to get back into my own title agency. So many people do when they even non-compete, then they just get right back into it as soon as they're free.
So what is this? I'm a little confused. What is this technology that you're referring to that you developed, and what sets you apart from any other title company? I know title companies relational. I've been using them for 25 years. But there you go.
Yeah, it's definitely a relationship business. And I've always felt like, all right, great. How do you break into those relationships? How do you bring a value proposition when you have something that people see and view as a commodity, right? And it is a commodity to a degree, but not really. I mean, in the same way that, like, your attorney, is your attorney a commodity? Like, no, one attorney is going to do a better job than another attorney. But yes, you have a relationship with them. You have a trust. The technology, to answer your first question, we basically built a knowledge base of how to clear and cure complicated title issues. So let's say you have there's a judgment, and the judgment's in Pennsylvania and it's in Philadelphia County, right? The funnel, you can't see my hands, but the funnel keeps getting smaller. And then, it's called administrative adjudication, whatever, right? Now that judgment has rules. It may time out after 7 years, statute of limitations. It may attach a property you acquired after the date of the judgment, or it may not. It may attach despite the fact that you may own the property as tenants by entireties with your spouse, right? A legal way for a married couple to own property, or it may not. The rules are different in every state. They're different in every county. And then what do you do? There's only 3 to 6 things you could ever do to clear this up. So this was really a technology that was built for people who were doing this work, not for laymen, not for consumers, but people who were doing the work. And it helped tremendously the cost, time, speed, and consistency of decision making for attorneys, for title companies. And it enabled a whole slew of things. Not all of them I even counted on at first. For example, with that consistency and speed, now we can focus on building the relationships, on the client aspect, right, of the business, rather than, anyone out there who deals with title, they're usually the person you're talking to is also working on the factory floor. They're typing commitments, picking up the phone and building settlement statements at the physical table. People just don't have enough time. There's not enough time in the day for all of those things. So a lot of companies, in my experience in this business, it's a complicated operating business. I actually, Josh, honestly, I compare this business to the restaurant business a lot. I think I'd like to hear that comparison. Yeah. Do that. Would you mind? Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of really strong, and anyone who works for me, by the way, and anyone who I know in this space, they roll their eyes when I start to make a restaurant analogy because I do it so much. I think to start with, the back of the house, front of the house thing is very, very comparable to title, right? You've got people clearing and curing title. You've got technical. It's a very technical business. You've got a lot of technical things going on in the back of the house that people don't see. They see the front of the house. They see a physical settlement often, right? Consumers only know they go to the table. There's a person at the table. They're signing down. They have no idea. That's 2% of the time of the man hours involved, in the actual transaction. So there's a lot of things that are really comparable. But I think it's an easy analogy to the restaurant business. I do it a lot.
I like it. I like that. Now you were talking about JVs early on, and one of them I know is you've JV'd with DLP Capital, and they're a large probably partner of yours. How did that work out?
Worked out great. They're an interesting case, a great case where the leadership at DLP Capital had a title company and had a title relationship for years before we met them, probably 7 years at least. And I think they had 2 or 3 different operating partners in that venture, none of which were successful. From an operating perspective, they weren't successful. And from my understanding, when we came aboard, they were not making any money from their title joint venture. I think they said they had, I'm trying to remember. I want to say it's been a couple of years. I want to say it was 16 employees of this company when we came in and took them over. And it was like last ditch. When we met them, they were ready to throw the whole thing away. Just be like, we're out of the title business. We're done. We met them. They understood our technology. They appreciated that. And so we took a shot at it. And 16 employees became 1, right? Which makes a big difference on profits. And in a compliant way, we're able to support that employee, a dedicated, focused employee. We're able to support that person through some of our centralized operations, and we are very profitable for them. They have realized great gain in the last 2 years since we've been partners with them, and I think they're making money in title for the first time, and they're happy. I'm pretty sure that we've also been able to expand our market share with the deals that we're able to do for them too. Yeah, I mean, when it talks about JV, from a layman's point of view, I've seen this done
with real estate agents who are in the residential world. Sometimes they'll say, we own a title company. And then that title company might be ABC Title, and the person's name was, the name of the team. And you buy the house, use ABC Title. ABC Title, let's say they charge you $12,000, $15,000 for the title policy.
It's a nice house.
How does it work in that $12,000? Where does the money, there's this big portion of it that's insurance, right? Let's pretend it's $12,000. What of $12,000 or even $10,000, so you can do it in ratios? If it was a $10,000 title cost, how much went to the actual underlying premium and service fees? How does that usually work?
Yeah, let me break it down for you. And also, when I'm done too, I want to make a point about the residential, how prominent it is in residential versus commercial, and kind of how interesting that is. So of a $10,000 premium. So first of all, the breakdown, the share of that is split with the agency, if there's a title agency involved, and the underwriter, right? Because we underwrite on the paper that we give you. The policy might say First American, or might say Fidelity, or might say Stewart. Those are the underwriters, right? That's like an insurance company. Just like if you would, buy your auto insurance from Joe at the corner in the insurance agency, but it's written on Allstate or whatever.
Right.
Like you get in an accident, Joe's not paying anything. Allstate's paying for it. Same way. And so we underwrite with multiple underwriters. In certain states, we may pay them 30% of that gross premium. In certain states, we may pay as little as 10 or 15. It depends on the state. And it depends in part on the negotiation, on the deal that we have with that underwriter. But usually it's pretty guided by the state for the most part. And then the rest of it is retained by us as revenue. But there's a fair amount of cost. If you go to any title company, there's a lot of employees. So there's a fair amount of cost in running the business. The way that it's structured in some places, usually on the West Coast, is a little bit more realistic to what it is, right? Because title's really not, it really shouldn't be an insurance product. It's really more of like a service and a delivery. And then you get a guarantee at the end, right? Or a warranty, right? We're going to conduct a settlement. We're going to make sure that no assets or liability get drug along by the prior owners. Yes, we're also going to make sure that you own the property free. We're also going to understand what you own. If you're buying something more complicated, like a piece of land or, any kind of commercial transaction, it's more complicated than a home also. So there's a lot of elements. The taxes are paid, utilities, like there's a lot of things. And we're going to conduct the settlement, which means follow the lender's instructions, hold all the money, be the bank in the transaction, disperse all the money, make sure the payoffs are done, all that stuff, record documents so they're legal, all of it. And then at the end, if we didn't do our job well, we give you this little warranty and you have recourse. You can come back and you can knock on our door and you don't have to pay a lawyer. We pay for legal fees from $1. So that's really what it is, which doesn't sound like insurance. You know what I mean? That's really like, insurance is.
I like it. It's more like a guarantee on the box, like Tommy Boy used to say.
Right.
But so I think I just picked up a nuance in your business plan, but I want to ask. So I always pictured it as, let's say 70% was the underwriting premium for an insurance policy and 30% was the service fee. I mean, I thought it was pretty lopsided. So I was wrong.
It's in some place, like in Pennsylvania, it's very strange where there's rules where the insurance policy itself eats up most of the cost. You're not allowed to pass through other things. Not much, a little, but not much. And then, we have to do everything under the guise of that insurance policy, what we make that insurance. In other places like California, there's a title insurance premium that's cost for that guarantee, right? And then there's also like escrow fee. And that escrow fee can be significant. It's also based on the purchase price. And that's for escrowing the money, conducting the settlement, doing all these service-related things that are done. Because most of the work, effort, time, resources, knowledge, the whole thing is on the service side of it.
So is there something here that you've kind of cracked the code? I mean, are you able to reduce the premium and increase the revenue ratio?
We can't
in a way that's creative to your company.
Yes.
That's part of your unique selling proposition.
Yeah, sort of. So you can't reduce the premium because those things are guided by regulations, right? It's guided by the state. You have to charge what you have to charge. But what we've done, like you mentioned earlier, like that you've seen this a lot in the residential world, right? Residential brokers, usually brokers, sometimes team leaders that have, agents or really highly producing agents will go and get these joint ventures. And the reason that happens, I mean, it's obvious because there's money to be made, but also the real estate brokerage business is a terrible business, right? Like the agents make money. You can make money if you're a highly productive agent. But as a broker, think about it. Like your agents are making, 90% commissions, 95, 85. There's caps at 15 grand max for the year. Like the power is definitely in the hands of the agents, and that shifted some years ago now. The real estate brokerage, they still have to keep the lights on. They have to have nice offices. They have to, have marketing and sales, and they've got to do stuff to attract these agents. And, there's still like a lot of overhead to carry. So it's not a great business. They're working on really thin margins. For them, it's almost baked into the business model. They have to make money from ancillary services like title or mortgage, other things, insurance, whatever, but largely title and mortgage. That's where a lot of their profits come from, disproportionately, like by far.
Hi, this is Melanie McCallan. Josh and I are just so grateful for the many investors who have already joined us at Accountable Equity. Accountable Equity is so much more than a capital group. It's really a community of accredited investors that want to learn and grow together. I just want to personally invite you, if you want to find out more about this type of investment and see if it's right for you and your family, please visit us at accountableequity.com.
Hey, it's Hal Elrod, author of The Miracle Morning, and you're listening to Capital Hacking. Enjoy.
In the commercial space, where if you're a syndicator or an investor, or again, like a family office or whatever, it's not part of your business model at all. You're not, you never even thought about titles. Often you get really deep into the business. I've talked to people that are definitely billionaires, are controlling billions of dollars worth of real estate. And I'm not talking about, I talked to one or two of these people. I've talked to hundreds of these people. The overwhelming, majority response is, like you can really do this, and it's not, to answer your question directly, it's not reducing the premium, but it is creating a joint venture where, hey, if you spit to make it easy and clean, somebody's running a $400 million fund and they're buying real estate constantly or the refinancing, or they're always doing something. And they spent $1 million last year on title premiums, let's just say, right? And I can go to that person and say, listen, I can put $400,000 or $500,000 of that back in your pocket as complete bottom line, right? Profit bottom line as distribution of profit from an agency that we can run together. That's meaningful, right? And if that person's making 2% AUM and they've got to promote, but what are they really making? They're making, a few $1 million a year in a business that looks like that. To add $5 million to the bottom line is meaningful, it's
right.
meaningful, right? So, or a $1 billion, family office, and I can go to them and say, hey, listen, we're going to put $1 million a year in your pocket next year, profit distribution. You may be a billionaire, but listen, it's $1 million a year. It's $1 million a year.
No, it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's enough money.
But the part that I guess, and I'll end it on this because I don't want to drill you too much here. That's a lot of revenue. That's a lot of margin, potentially gross profit margin, and you need to earn money in that joint venture.
Yeah.
You're just basically compensating them in this JV because you didn't have to go out and source the business. So the business came to you. It helped you get efficiency on your overhead staff. It helped you get more policies written, which might also have an ancillary benefit to you. You might, volume discount or something. I don't know. But I think it's awesome. And, here's a curious question that everybody is listening. It's like, how have you been able to find more than 10 or maybe billionaires to talk to, $1 billion family offices? How did you go about doing that?
Yeah, it's a great question. We try to find where they live. We try to go to where they are. Last year, I went on an endeavor where we counted. I spoke to. We had deep, meaningful conversations with about 125. We'll call them principals, right? And some of them were family office. All these people were major players.
You just cold called into them?
No, we created a sales relationship with an intermediary, with someone, I guess effectively you could call like an outsourced
real estate broker
rep. Yeah, not really a broker, but someone who was an outsourced sales rep who had some deep relationships. Someone that came from a world where they were pretty close to a lot of these folks and made it their business to develop these kinds of relationships and get in front of them, And so
that's great.
Yeah, we find the sources of where. I just got off the phone right before this podcast with a guy who, again, like a center of influence. That's really where we find the meat. Like This guy's a real estate consultant that consults mostly companies that aren't necessarily in the real estate business, but they do M&A, and they might, real estate might come along with that M&A, and they're not real estate people necessarily, but they have complicated real estate stuff that comes along with it. And, they're not big, they're big, but they're not big enough to have their own real estate department. And, along with that comes complicated title issues, the need for transactions, whatever. So, try to bring value to people like anything, right? And hopefully they can bring value back to us.
What you said earlier, Matt, when you said, we are a service company, I would totally agree with that for our listeners. I'm sure a lot of our listeners do own quite a bit of real estate. Some probably have just bought a handful here and there. But yeah, I just want to make a statement that all title companies are not created equal. People think like, oh, I have a title company and they'll take my back and this and that. I can't tell you how many times I have been literally at settlement. We used to call them the HUD sheet. Now I believe they're called the Ulta. I don't know why that name changed, but neither here nor there. These numbers are all wrong, and you got to sit there for hours while the title company moves them around and makes corrections and all this stuff. And it drives you crazy. And that's why it's so important to have the right title company that you can actually trust, because it is a service company. That was just a statement. My question to you is, I know you're in multiple states. I think you're in 10 different states. What are some of the better states that you enjoy working in?
Yeah. We're directly licensed in 10 states. We close commercial business all over the country. I think we closed in 28 states last year through our partners on the ground and work share. There, different states have different rules. You may need an attorney to do certain things. So we have attorney partners in certain states. And I'll tell you those states, I mean, my favorite markets, we have an office in Texas, we have an office in Florida, we have an office in Philadelphia, we have one in the Lehigh Valley, so another one, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Florida, Texas. Those are great states for us. The Carolinas, Georgia, all the way down the East Coast, essentially, or we're really, really strong on the East Coast, although we've closed in states like Kentucky and throughout the Sun Belt, Oklahoma, as far west as Colorado. The West Coast kind of behaves a little bit differently in this business, so it gets a little tricky. When you talked about what you just did, man, it makes me cringe, to think about but I know the stories, I know the deal, you're sitting at the table and people just don't have their act together. Again, I think part of that is, the good news for us, I think there are, and this is the reason I got into this business 20 years ago. I saw it. I saw that there's a lot of, that the competition is frequently weak. I think it's gotten stronger in the last few years. But I think that and maybe technology has something to do with that, but I think the competition has been generally weak. And it's tough to sell value proposition in this business because people do see it as a commodity. They don't really get it, But as you said, it's the same thing as if you hire an attorney. It's what I always think of it as. It's like an attorney's an attorney, a contract to contract. At the end of the day, you get the same thing that you get it from everybody. But not really, it's going to take people a different amount of time, cost a different, the bill's going to be different. And the quality of work is going to be different. And that's going to matter a lot to how the deal plays out. So
this has been great, Matt. Thank you for helping us deep dive into this and helping us, I do think it's very wise. And I want to end with one question since, I don't think the joint ventures come lightly. You probably are very judicious on who you partner with.
For sure.
What is a typical transaction number that you want to see a year before you can really earn a living as a joint venture?
Hey guys, it's John Vroman, founder of Front Row Dads, and you're listening to Capital Hacking, the best investment you'll make today.
Great question. There's two kinds of joint ventures. There's what we'll call closed joint ventures and open joint ventures. Open joint ventures where we may sell shares of that entity to multiple shareholders, and and we can pool those people together. And that's an art and a science in and of itself, and us operating those things. We've got very, very good at that. The closed joint ventures, in any joint venture, you want to see it starts to get interesting when the company's producing over $500,000 a year in revenue, in title revenue. And that's a little bit hard to quantify because number one, it depends on the state, the cost, right, of what title is every state you go to. And it also depends on, 100 $1 million transactions, or is not the same as $100 million transaction. They're priced very different. So so we have some clients that are doing 8-figure deals, like high 8-figure deals, and they might do 15 or 20 deals a year, and that is a great looking partner, your joint venture partner. And then we have some people that are doing they're real estate brokerages or teams, and they're doing 15, 20, 30 deals a month, say, a few hundred deals a year. And they're $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a piece. And that's also a good part. But it's very different looking. The economics are very, very different looking of those folks. Different resources are needed, whatever. But as a broad stroke, once you get like north of $500,000 a year and that $300,000 to $500,000 a year space and generated revenue is where we also like to pick up people, because if they're growing and we believe in them, whatever it is that they're doing, and they're on a path of growth, we'd like to grow with them. That's where it gets good.
It's fantastic. Matt, thank you so much for all the wisdom here, especially on title that is kind of a mystery to a lot of people. And you articulated it well and broke it down very simply. And where can our listeners connect with you if they have more questions?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find our website, our company website's titleeq.com. People feel free to email me directly. I can share that.
Thank you, buddy.
Awesome. Cheers. Thank you.
Damn straight. We just got we got to the end of another great show. And everyone listening right now, you're the family and friends. Thanks for staying till the end.
That was so fun. And hey, hit the like, hit subscribe. We're here to serve you guys. That's why we're doing this show. Josh is not paying me. I'm doing this off of my quote unquote sweat equity, because we want to make a difference in your life. And then that ripple effect will continue to touch the world.
Hey, amen, brother. Please check us out on capitalhacking.com, all the social media threads. And yes, I know you've probably already sent this episode to one of your best friends. Thank you. We love you. Just go right into your iPhone, hit the plus symbol. We'll talk to you later. See you next week.
Share.